We're going to make a grid for our drawing reproduction. Our paper is 12 inches by 9 inches. Our grid is going to be 8 inches by 6 inches. I'm going to use a marker to make this grid, but do not use a marker or pen for your grid. In fact, draw lightly. Since we have the rulers with the red lines on them, we can make this really easy to start. We know that our paper is 12 inches by 9 inches and that the grid needs to be 8 by 6. So on the 12-inch side, we know 8 inches from 12 inches is 4 inches. On the 6-inch by 9-inch side, we know the difference is 3 inches. Right now I'm looking at the 9-inch edge. We know that we have to put 3 inches in, but if we divide 3 by 2, 1.5 inches. Now, you may be asking, well, why are we doing all this math? And this is to get our grid perfectly centered in our page. You don't have to have your grid perfectly centered in the page, but why not? So for the 12-inch side, we had 4 inches for the margins. So easy peasy, 4 divided by 2. That's going to be 2 inches for that margin. Again, you're not going to draw any of this out. These are just the instructions for your piece of paper and to let you understand how to get the grid centered. All right, so we need to go 1.5 inches on these edges. These rulers are really nice because if we look on the inside, the middle line is a little thicker. So from edge to that line is 1 inch. To the other edge, of course, would be 2 inches. But since we have to go 1.5 inches, if we look in between that inch, there's another little slightly darker red line. And you'll notice that the 2 inches are broken up into 4 of those boxes. So if we use 3 of those boxes, that'll be 1.5 inches. All right, so we're gonna line that edge so it's 1, 2, 3 boxes in from the edge. Now we're gonna take the time to make sure that that red line is running down the edge perfectly. I don't see any gaps of white. And then I'll look at the other line on the edge and it looks pretty good. So I'm gonna go ahead and make that mark. Again, you will be using a pencil. I'm using a marker just so we can see a nice dark line that's been made. That's our first edge. And we don't have to worry about it being a perfect box. We're gonna erase all this later. So we do the same thing on the other side. We go 1 inch, 1.5 inches, 3 boxes, looking at the red lines. No need to rush this. Oops, see, that was a bad move. I moved the ruler, so I got to stop, readjust. And I cheated a little bit. I drew the lines out beforehand, so I knew where to go with this with you guys, but it's not that hard. You'll be doing it in pencil, so if you make any boo-boos, no big deal, you just get to erase. Now the 2-inch margin, that's easy peasy because the ruler is 2 inches. So I just line that up, the red lines along the edge, take my time. And just go all the way across. All right, we're almost there. Same thing on the other side. The ruler is 2 inches. That was what we needed for the margin. And I like to use the thinner red lines to line up along the edge. It's just a preference. I feel like I can be a little more precise. All right, and there's our box. So anytime we make a box, we should always just measure it. And it's 6 inches at the top, 6 inches at the bottom. And we got a little bit less than 8 inches there. Let's see if that holds up over here. Ooh, I don't like that. See, it's always good when we make mistakes on camera. That way you can see how we fix that. So yeah, I'm not digging that line. I'm not digging that box. It could veer it over a little bit. So what you could do is, of course, erase from about there and just make a little notch where it needed to be. And you know, some people wouldn't quibble over this, but it's good that you see what we do when we make mistakes, because life happens. And then we would make a line. Okay, I'm not gonna do that because I'm just gonna keep it clean for the video, but it was off a little bit. All right, so let's get our grid done. Now that we got the box, this should be easy peasy from here on out because we're doing 1 inches. So we're just gonna go 1, 1, 1. Just put a little notch. We're gonna do that on the other end. I'm gonna use that new point to make my inches. Just every inch. And then I walk it down. I just line up using the box. I line up and go point to point. Now the other way you could do it is you could just start from one edge and use that middle line and just go down. You can actually do a little bit of both and go across. Again, if we don't like it, we can always redo it. I'm getting pretty close, pretty happy with that. Remember, if you go over your box, it's no big deal. We're gonna erase this grid when we're done. No one needs to know about this grid. It's just our secret. And then we do the same thing from the top. We have 6 inches across. So we do a mark. And hey, let's be a little bolder on this one. Now I could come down to the bottom and do the same 6 notches, but let's just use the ruler. If I use the red line and I line it up along the other lines, then I know we're good. I want to make sure I press the ruler down. Another pro tip, not that we're using markers, but if you were using a marker or a pen with a ruler, be smart and clean your ruler afterwards. Otherwise, your next drawing you go to, you will put a bunch of ink on it. Lessons learned. Almost done, 2 more lines. And there we go. And that's how we make a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, just to make sure. That's our grid. Again, use pencil. Do not use pen or marker. I just did that so we could see it a little bit easily on the camera. Now, before we go, we have one more thing to do. And here's the drawing, the hand drawing that I'm going to do. And it will be in a vertical orientation. Otherwise, I would have to turn it the other way. And I'm going to go ahead, and the last thing we need to do is label. And that's just going to help us out because it's going to make it real easy for us to discern which box we're looking at. Later, we will be erasing these. So as small as we can, with a light pencil, get that 2H out. We're going to go across the letters that correspond to our reference, and then we're going to come down with the numbers. Lightly, lightly, so lightly, and when we erase it, it'll just vanish away. We don't want anyone to see that. And I'm not a big fan of this, but if it helps you, maybe a couple over, we'll go to C. We'll go down to 4. Maybe you want to label C4. Maybe you want to label D4. It's kind of the center. We want to go ahead and do C5, D5, and if you want to get jiggy with it, F8. Just to kind of help you out. You could also put that on your reference if you need to. I don't, but do what makes you happy. That should be making a grid and labeling it. If you had any trouble with it, of course, ask the teacher or rewind and watch the video again, and feel free to pause and check it out frame by frame. Thank you.